Hello everybody and welcome to another weekly Q&A. The weekly Q&A is just a small segment to go over anything related to the RuneScape community this week. We will be going over updates, any news related to the community, any Reddit suggestions, as well as a quick overview of the Q&A this week. Anyway, I hope you enjoy and let's get started. So on November 29th, we received our weekly content update, and that consisted of the spellbook filters coming to the PC, as well as some bounty hunter changes. For those who don't know, the spellbook filter is a way to filter your spells based on certain characteristics, so filtered based on combat, teleport, utility, spells you have the level to cast, and spells you have the runes to cast. Now this has already been changed on mobile, so this sounds great. However, the poll for this ended up getting repolled twice. The original poll passed. However, some people from the PvP community were saying that if the icons rescale in your UI, it would be lowering the skill ceiling for PvP. So because of this, we got a repoll. So the first repoll wasn't the biggest issue, but afterwards the way they wrote the question out was really weird. It ended up being polled in a negative aspect, so people would be voting on whether they didn't want this in the game. An example people are given is, do you not want warding in the game? So if you vote yes for this, meaning that you don't want warding in the game, it requires 75% to pass, where no only requires 25%. They posed the question in a negative sense, which is completely backwards and dumb, and they did realize it, and that's why they took down that poll and replaced it with our final poll, which was fine. However, the interaction on the poll was extremely low. It barely didn't pass with 74.7%, I believe. So what ended up happening is we have these spellbook filters, but they will not rescale in size based on your selections. So what we ended up with is this awkward layout in your spell inventory of just random spells being in the middle, the exact same size. So it's really not great. And to top it all off, if you don't use the filters, the icons have moved anyway. So really, it's just a lose-lose for anyone. So this whole update kind of got a little bit botched. I wouldn't really blame Jagex 100% here. It's great that they are trying to listen to all the subsets of the community, but what ended up happening is nobody's happy, everything's wrong, and they kind of need to fix it. We'll talk a little bit more about this later. The only other major change is to Bounty Hunter. So now to be able to receive a mysterious emblem from killing a target, or as a drop from any player that is risking a mysterious emblem, you now must have one in your inventory. Killing any opponent without an emblem in your inventory will cause any emblem in the opponent's inventory to be lost. So essentially what this is doing is making it so you have to risk more in PvP, which I think is just really making the barrier to enter for PvP even higher. Now if you want to learn, you're going to be risking a mysterious emblem every time that you're in the Bounty Hunter world. Anyway, what do you guys think about that? A few changes to how you skip your targets, and another notable change is you cannot teleport right after you use your special attack in PvP. So you no longer can unload your special attack and teleport right away, which is a pretty major change, honestly. And that's pretty much it for content update this week. So now let's go over some information that's related to the community this week. We're going to talk a little bit more about the spellbook change because it's pretty controversial. So here is what this spellbook change looks like as is in the game. When you filter the spells, they just hover randomly around. They're the same size, they're awkwardly spaced, and it just does not look great. Like I said earlier, if you do not put any of the filters on, it still is different. However, Jagex did make a tweet that they're investigating reverting the spell icons back to their previous locations for desktop, so hopefully that will happen soon. It will require a cold fix, which means the game will need to be restarted. Hopefully they'll get that changed in the next day or two. Another hot fix this week was to birdhouses. For those who don't know, birdhouses got nerfed a few weeks back. While some people don't agree with the nerf at all, they seem to be lower than what the rate Jagex said they would be. So they had a look at that and they did implement a hot fix into the game, so hopefully your birdhouse runs will be a little more accurate to the rates that they said they were going to be. Next up here is a very interesting bug. Now this has already been patched. There was a way to complete the quest Demon Slayer in under 1 minute. The way this worked is you needed to complete the Golem quest first, and by doing that you could start the Demon Slayer quest, talk to an NPC that was related to the Golem quest. He would just give you Silverlight right away without having to gain any of the keys from any of the steps in Demon Slayer, and then you just go to kill the demon. There was a video on it, I'll leave a link in the description for that, but he completed it in 1 minute. Pretty hilarious. Mod Ghost released the design for some of the drakes that will be in a Brimstone. It's pretty interesting lore. It says where their wings might have grown, mature drakes develop gaping sores on their backs. This constant pain that they endure from these sores makes them extremely aggressive. The design looks really cool and I'm very excited for this entire new Slayer update. I think it's probably one of my more favorite updates released at RuneFest. And finally here, the results of the PvP All-Star Championships. Maked Up Mage was the winner. He went 15-0, so he did not lose a single fight. There were some issues with the tournament, of course, but overall, it was pretty smooth compared to other Jagex tournaments. There were some resets, but overall the visuals, the camera, and everything worked pretty well, honestly. And that is it for community updates this week. So every week there is a weekly Q&A. I'm going to do a quick recap of this Q&A just to show you the important points or anything else that's maybe more related to content. To begin with here, since the only Slayer Master that can assign Hydras will be Konar, does that mean when killing Hydras it will have access to the new Konar drop table and therefore can drop the Dragon Hasta? They said yes, everything on that list can drop from that table. The rates will scale by combat level. If the monster has a Slayer requirement, then it'll have an extra boost. Can you boost to get Alchemical Hydras as a task? No, you cannot. Will Konar assign monsters that are only in one place like gargoyles? Yes. If a new skill were added, would the max cape increase in price? Yes, it would, but it won't increase for those that already have the cape. If Fossil Island had to have a boss tomorrow, what creature would you guys like to see and what mechanics would make it a fun and engaging boss? Modmass said my boss would be different depending on what fossils you use to create it. Choose the mechanics as you go. Modstone said the boulders from the mine connected to make like an onyx from Pokemon. Mod Bruno, maybe like a mushroom boss. Mod West, a big version of like a kangaroo mushroom boss. Can the Ancient Wyvern shield get a buff? It doesn't make sense to have a negative bonus as a charged shield. As a magic shield, that's how it works. We could buff it if appropriate and really needed. Is there a way to make it so that the Smoke Devil resets after someone leaves? It's a wider problem with everything. Maybe we need a better solution like the God Wars dungeon bosses healing when there's no one in the room. Would be nice to look at if we get the time, but it is not a priority. Marks of Grace only have two uses, Graceful and Crystals. Would it be possible to add another reward? They said maybe. Does anyone have any ideas? Black Graceful could be nice. What's happening with the collection log? They said it's coming soon. We have a date in mind, but it's still going through testing. Is there any update regarding streamers doing sub giveaways? Yes, there is an update on this. We're looking to make this against the rules, but there are a few things we need to iron out first. Can we get a mage special attack weapon? It could be a slow weapon like the Dragon Warhammer that is only good for special attack. The special attack could be dependent on what spell you're casting. An example with Ancients is a successful shadow spell will lower your attack strength or defense by 15%. It's something we could do on a weapon like the Trident. Since the weapon only casts that spell, it wouldn't really be viable to make a special attack that covers a lot of spells though. Can we have the ability to look at a loot tracker on the herb sack? Yes, we would like to do that. Can we get quest filters for things that you can do or have the ability to start? They said Mod Lenny has started doing some background work on that to make it so that quests have data stored to them. Can we get an agility course for Zaya? Yes, it's one of those things we were discussing. We could look at an alternative like dungeons or swimming. Kebos isn't the last thing what will happen to Zaya, so there are a lot of opportunities to introduce it in the future. What about a mage cannon? Charge it with runes and it shoots spells. No. Can we have an option like the Grotesque Guardian to toggle/remove the cutscene intro from Zulrah? They're not sure how the code works, but they'd have to look at it and make sure it's balanced. And that is it for the Q&A recap. And last up here, I always like to go over a few Reddit suggestions from this week, starting off with a post from X039, and that is push notifications for RuneScape Mobile. This has to happen. It's going to be the most useful thing in the world for flipping. Essentially, if you had an offer in your Grand Exchange, or maybe even for farming, or anything like that, it could send you a push notification when the offer is through, or your tree has grown, or anything that requires you being away from your account for quite a while. Now, I know there are some issues with this. Most likely, there is no code in the game to detect anything when you're logged off. You notice if you use any third-party plugin for anything related to tracking your farming, it'll only update when you're logged in. So that might require engine work, so that might not happen, but it'll be such a good update. Also, good job on getting elite on your phone time. Next up, a suggestion by Philomathis, and that is Grand Exchange Guards. A guard will spawn whenever a player says doubling money, quitting, staking my bank, search X on YouTube, and trade me, and other common scam phrases. The guard will be aggressive like the evil chicken random event and will attack the player until they leave the Grand Exchange area or die. It is not possible to fight back. When a guard attacks a player, it will also say, "Beware citizens," player name is a scammer to warn a player about scamming. It's a great idea. There's no way this would work. I think more likely than not, this would become a new scam, or at least a new trolling method, because you just tell someone to say a certain phrase of word and then they would die. Definitely not viable, but a hilarious idea nonetheless. Next up here, a suggestion by Bathos Bro, and that is to remove the dual arena clue step. I did not even know this existed, but there's actually a clue that requires you to get into a duel and dig in the area in there. While I understand this is a multiplayer game, generally content that requires you to have multiple players, that's not something like raids where obviously you most likely will need other players. But if you're just doing a clue scroll, you don't want to have to go find another player, join a duel just to do a clue, so I think that, they should definitely remove this one. And last up here, another suggestion by Philomathis. Good job. Can we highlight untradables in the items kept on death interface? This would be extremely useful because I have no idea what's honestly kept on death. I know this would change based on what level of wilderness you are in, I think it really comes down to that a lot of people just don't actually know. I bet the JMods aren't even sure what's kept on death or for what reason. For this reason alone, I never bring graceful or anything important to the wilderness because I have no idea if it's going to be lost forever or kept on death. This would be such a useful update because if a lot of experienced players don't know this, there's no way a new player would have any clue on what is kept. Anyway guys, that's pretty much it for the weekly recap. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any suggestions, any questions, don't hesitate to leave any comments down below. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.